I'm Tim McMullen and you're watching Beaver Breakdown.
Hi Beaver Nation, I'm Brittany Held.
And I'm Audrey Wiltz, and we're here with another episode of Beaver Breakdown.
It's game day, so we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to take a look at last week's tough loss against the Stanford Cardinals and see how the Beavs are bouncing back to get ready for tonight's game against the Men of Troy. Take a look.
This week at practice, we caught up with Teron Ward and Steven Nelson to talk about the mindset of this week coming off the loss and preparing for USC.
I'm just trying to work hard and get prepared for SC. They're a good team, and we got to put Stanford behind us. You know, it's a short week, but we're having the same practice preparation Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Practices aren't that long. We want to get our bodies healthy, but pretty much the same preparation.
We just come out here and keep competing and keep improving each and every day, and just trusting ourselves and go get the next one.
Despite it being a short week of practice due to tonight's Friday game, the Beavers didn't seem too worried about it being a quick turnaround.
It's pretty easy for us. We live in a one-week bubble, and we always preach that. And I mean, it really comes into especially these kinds of short weeks where it's, hey, full steam ahead on USC. And after the Stanford game, literally that Sunday, Stanford game just became a tool in our belt and something that we can use against USC.
Even with the loss last weekend, the Beavers still seemed focused on the importance each game brings.
I mean, every game you want to win, and definitely it contributes to what bowl game you go to or not go to, so this is definitely a big game.
It's time again for Third Down here in the studio, where usually we would tackle 3 different topics pertaining to this week's opponent, but we're going to switch it up this week. Britt, why don't you take the floor first, give me your key points to the game. I'll put my 2 cents in afterwards. Matt, of course, will give us his key to the game, but then I really want to take some time to look at the history between these two teams.
Audrey, the unfortunate topic has to be injuries. There's been vital injuries to both teams, so let's start with the Beavs. A heartbreaker. Kevin Cummings broke his wrist. He had surgery. He's definitely not going to be back for the rest of the season. Maybe if they make it to a bowl game, but he's definitely going to be out. The 2 tight ends, Caleb Smith and Hamlet, they're out. And on the defensive side of the ball, DJ Alexander had that weird thing going on with his neck area, shoulder, so he was in and out of practice all week. So the offense is definitely hurting in some areas, but you are going to see some new faces out there like Malik Gilmore. He's definitely going to need to step into that big role and make some plays for the Beavs. Sean Mannion is going to have to get used to playing with some guys that he's not really used to throwing to. USC is missing their notable players as well. Cornerback Brown, their outside linebacker Breslin, and their tight end Telfer. But other players who are questionable for the week is their right tackle Kevin Graff and their prolific wide receiver Marquise Lee. So as you can see, they're missing valuable players, some for the Beavs, some for USC, but it's kind of the nature of the game, unfortunately, and I just hope to see a good battle out there and that the players who aren't used to being out there really step up their game, and this is their chance to shine.
I think you're totally right. You can't think about tonight's matchup without taking a look at what injuries have taken place so far. But what I want to talk about is the stability of these programs. Coach Riley's in his 13th season here. He's the longest tenured coach in the Pac-12, which is awesome. And, you know, he's a different type of guy. He's not your typical coach. You don't hear him cuss in the locker rooms. You don't see him screaming at these guys. He really builds a family. These guys aren't just teammates, but they're brothers out there on the field, and they're led, you know, to be that way by Coach Riley and the rest of the coaching staff. They support him so well. And, you know, I remember last spring I was at safety. Stephen Christian had his first art show here at OSU, and I saw Coach Riley and his wife, and that they were just talking to me, and he just seemed so genuinely happy. And he said to me, you know, this is the kind of stuff that I love to see. He likes his teammates to be, or his players to be successful both on and off the field, which I think is great, and it says a lot about this program. Now, on the USC side, obviously, you know, they lost Lane Kiffin earlier in the season, kind of shook things up for them. They had Ed Ogeron come in as the interim coach, and in his deep, raspy voice, he had said, you know, he wanted to change the menu, which is exactly what he did, both literally and figuratively, actually. I was reading some articles that said, you know, they got to eat fried chicken, they got dessert after practices, stuff like that, blasting music in the locker rooms, you know. He really had to come in, and as tough as that was for those players, the USC guys, to, you know, go through that change of coaching, it probably was a little bit tough on the coaching side too, for those players to look at you and think, you know, okay, that guy's going to change this program around. And so, you know, with that being said, will it play out on the field? I'm not so sure, but I think that it definitely plays a factor, you know, in the stability of these programs, of what's going on with USC and what's going on with the Beavers right now.
Well, let's check in with Matt and see what he thinks about tonight's matchup.
My key to beating USC this weekend starts with you, Beaver Nation. USC hasn't won in Corvallis since 2004, and a huge part of that is how you, the fans, always show up for the matchups with the Trojans. Now, this season has been anything but glamorous for the men of Troy. Their offense ranks near the bottom of almost every statistical category out there, but their defense is what has propelled them to their 5-3 start and 19.3 points per game given up. The Beavers will have to bounce back from a tough loss to Stanford and feed off the energy from what should be a big crowd at Reser Stadium this weekend. Don't forget to wear orange, and I'll see you there.
Thanks, Matt. Keep sending us your own keys to the game by using the hashtag MattStats.
Britt, let's keep going with tonight's game. I really want to talk about what's at stake here because I think there's a lot of history that puts a lot on the line tonight. You know, USC hasn't played here in a while, as you mentioned. It's already Dad's weekend here at OSU. The Beavers are displaying their orange uniforms tonight, which is also exciting.
It's also Friday Night Lights. We haven't had a Friday night game here in a while.
Yeah, this is a big one too, and I feel like I'm saying that every week, but there really is a lot of history. You know, overall, USC has a 59-11 advantage in the series on OSU, which seems like a lot, but their first game was actually played in 1914. That was a long time ago, and it was played on Thanksgiving Day, and the reason for the game was, actually, they didn't even play in Corvallis. They played in Tacoma, Washington, and the reason was because they needed a 35,000-seat stadium. What they were trying to do was raise $50,000 for the Belgian Relief Fund after it was fueled by World War I. Crazy. Who knew that that was like the first time they played? Forever ago, and for a really good reason. That game was actually USC's first time ever playing outside of the state of California, too.
It's really cool to see the history between these two teams over the years, and tonight will be no different.
Right. The first time that USC actually played in Corvallis against the Beavers was a very famous game, 1967. That team, the Giant Killers, took down USC when they were ranked #1, 3-0. So it's actually cool. A former student here at OSU and a friend of mine, Alex Crawford, along with another friend, are actually making a documentary about the Giant Killers, which I think is awesome. Legendofthegiantkillers.com, they're just trying to get money to fund it, but I think it'll be a really cool story.
That's incredible, but let's look at more recently. 2004 was the last time the men of Troy entered Reser Stadium with a win, which means 2006, 2008, and 2010 all went to the Beavs with W's. So unfortunately, it's been 3 years since they played each other. 2010 was the year Pac-10 went to Pac-12. So just with the way that the rotation went, they haven't been able to play each other since then. So tonight is going to be a nice little reunion, and I'm ready for a good battle out there.
Undoubtedly. It definitely will be a battle. They both have a lot to fight for. You know, with the Pac-12, a conference like the Pac-12, every game matters so much. And, you know, especially at this point in the season, you know, as you mentioned, injuries from the Beavers, injuries on USC's side. You know, the teams are a little shaky as far as where they're at right now, but it definitely will be a battle. But that's what this game is all about. That's why people love football, because each week they have to fight through adversity. They have to respond to adversity and really be ready for each challenge that each weekend brings.
Everything about this week is challenging. USC's on the road. There's injuries. But I think USC's problems go a little bit deeper. They're still dealing with repercussions from the NCAA sanctions that they had when Reggie Bush was there. They have 4 years probation. They're finally off of that next year. And they had 30 scholarships taken away over 3 years. So they have to spread that over an entire football team. Not only that, halfway through the season, they lose their head coach, Lane Kiffin. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Maybe. They're finally eligible for a BCS bowl game. Could that be motivation to come into Reser Stadium and finally get a win? We'll find out tonight.
Well, with a brief look at that history, you know, tonight's game is going in the history books too, and I think what's going to be written in there is a 31-24 win for the Beavers. I know I keep choosing them every week, and as well as USC's defense played last week, I still don't think that they can handle the atmosphere that I know is going to be in Reser Stadium tonight.
I'm going to go with the Beaver win, too. All week at practice, USC was blaring third down chainsaw music in their speakers, getting ready for that hostile environment that Reser Stadium brings. I just don't know that they can really beat Sean Mannion, Brandon Cooks, and the rest of the Beavs. So I'm going to go with a 35-21 Beaver victory.
All right, well, I guess we'll see. If you can't make it out to Reser Stadium, you can catch the game tonight at 6 p.m. on ESPN2.
The Beavers have a bye next week, so we'll be off, but we'll see you the following week right here with another Beaver Breakdown.